Boom! We are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be. And of course, however you may be listening. Welcome to the first episode of what I will be titling the Big Ten Whip Around Show, where I go over the week in Big Ten football and give my thoughts and provide my kind of power rankings. Now, admittingly, some of this is very difficult to do after only week one of football. There's a ton of variability, and it's just the season is so fresh that it's hard to totally get a grasp as much as one would like on the various football teams. But nonetheless, I am really excited about this. I've received a lot of comments saying and this is outside of Iowa fans. By the way, I'm definitely an Iowa fan. If you are somebody who is a Michigan fan or a Wisconsin fan or what have you, from other fans of other fan bases saying that they really wish that I talked about other teams other than the Iowa Hawkeyes. So here it is. We have officially started it, and we'll see how it goes. By the way, like, comment, share, subscribe. You guys know the drill. I would love to get to 2,000 subscribers by the end of the season. We're well on our way to that, so I hope you guys consider smashing that subscribe button. And without further ado, let's get into this. So let's go ahead and just share the screen, shall we? I think for the most part, it was a good week in Big Ten football. A lot of new faces. I think that the two storylines really outside of I guess it would have definitely at least a little bit to do with what actually occurred on the football field. But to me, the most compelling storylines coming into the football season or week one would be, number one, all of the new faces, both coaching and players. You had Luke Fickell at Wisconsin. You had the new football coach at Northwestern with Pat Fitzgerald gone. Nebraska's new head football coach. I would say most of it is in the West, Matt Rule. And it was just very interesting to see. And then as for the players, you had guys like Cade McNamara for the Iowa Hawkeyes making his debut, multiple transfer quarterbacks. And that would really be the second storyline to pay attention to, which is how much of an impact the transfer portal has played on college football at large. But I would say it really impacts Power 5 conferences like the Big Ten. And it's just very interesting to see how new some of these rosters feel because of the turnover. And it's just, there's many people who feel, I think the two predominant kind of thought processes would be, one, you have the fans who really miss the traditional days, the good old days, if you will, of college sports, specifically college football, and kind of this loyalty to a program and a love for the institution. But then you have those who are like, no, these athletes make their school a ton of money, and they should be able to have both mobility and an opportunity to make some money. For me, I would say I'm probably somewhere in the middle. I definitely tend to be a more traditional guy by and large. But when it comes to college sports, I really do acknowledge how much money these athletes bring in or contribute to the institution. And while a scholarship, a full ride scholarship, is definitely not something to complain about, okay, a lot of these athletes, not all of them, but a lot of them are worth far more than just their scholarship. And when it comes to the scholarship, you could say, well, they earned that. They earned that. And ultimately, the other revenue as well, they've earned that as well. And you can't take that away from them. So all of these things are not just gifts that are just being handed out. These are earned things. So as long as college football is as popular as it is, and I would say in some regards, it has diminished, and in others, it has raised in popularity. There's definitely some things that need to be ironed out. While all of that is true, we are in uncharted territory, folks, and it's just very interesting to watch and monitor. I think it has, in a lot of respects, made the season more interesting, especially the preseason, to see where everybody goes and where everybody lands and things like that. But like I said, this is not just a gift that is being bestowed to these players. They earn a lot of money, and the money that they earn not only goes to the school, but it also goes towards paying for a lot of these other athletes playing other sports scholarships. And I know this because I played Division I water polo, and I was a recipient of that myself when it came to basketball and the revenue that basketball brought in to my school. So anyways, let's get into the Big Ten. I just wanted to highlight those two storylines that are definitely interesting to consider. The first game is the most recent one, would be Northwestern versus Rutgers. I think this was a really good gauging game. Like I said, with a week one, you have to take everything with a grain of salt, because ultimately there are some teams that are made to get better as the season goes on. There are some teams that are better at the beginning of the season comparatively than at the end, as opposed to the end of the season. You don't know if it was a fluke game. You don't know if there was injuries that totally impact. So there's just a lot of different factors. But for as much as we can take in for this game, I think this was a really good gauge. And I actually really like the week one Big Ten conference game. I really liked the Iowa versus Indiana game. I think it would be 2 years ago. And I think it just provides an excellent early season test in which to prepare for. Northwestern, as I said, was breaking in a new head coach. They were also breaking in a new quarterback. He threw the football 35 times, which I don't think is something a school like Northwestern necessarily wants to do. They only ran the football 22 times, which is very surprising. They absolutely struggled to get any push on the offensive line. The run game just absolutely struggled. He went 20 of 35 for 169 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 INTs with a 14.3 quarterback rating. Brendan Sullivan got in there, had a tub, 3 of 4 for 13 yards, nothing crazy. On Rutgers side, Gavin looks like Winsat. It's kind of hard to see for me from my vantage point here. Winsat, 17 of 29, 163 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 INTs. I think across the Big Ten, we saw a lot of quarterback performances like that. Not great, but good enough. And that is just classic Big Ten football. As I said, Northwestern really struggled to run the football. On the other hand, Rutgers did not as much. They had 122 yards rushing, which to me, the goal that each team should have, especially a more run first team or a running foundational team, the goal, the benchmark should always be about 100 yards total rushing at the very least. If you can get more than that, that is good. Here are the receiving yards here. Nothing crazy. Nobody had a massive game. Rutgers picked up the victory over Northwestern. Let's see who was the home team here versus away. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and click on Northwestern's thing. I did watch the highlights. Looks like it was in New Jersey. Or Rutgers was considered the home team here. So Rutgers picked up the victory. I think that's a really solid, well, again, Northwestern is definitely reeling. I think even if Pat Fitzgerald was here, this team was gonna struggle to be 500. But nonetheless, it's still a Power 5 team, and anytime you beat a Power 5 team in week 1, I think that's a really that's something to hang your hat on. The second game to go over, Nebraska versus Minnesota. Very important game for the Big Ten West in particular. Minnesota, this game really went back and forth, back and forth. Of course, I saw Pat, no, not Pat Fitzgerald, but the head coach of Minnesota totally celebrating after the game. A lot of people weren't happy with that. I think I saw a lot of people saying that it takes, if you're the head coach, you shouldn't take the attention off of the players. You should want as little attention as possible. Coach. Nonetheless, Minnesota picked up the victory. Sorry, guys, if my audio went out there. Minnesota picked up the victory in a back and forth contest. And it really at times was a very tough game to watch, folks. I mean, I'm just going to be totally frank about it. Jeff Sims, nothing to write home about. He struggled with his decision making. And what Matt Rule is going to figure out very quickly, if he doesn't already know this, is in the Big Ten, you cannot get away with losing the turnover battle, but you certainly cannot get away with your quarterback throwing 3 INTs or having more interceptions than touchdown passes thrown. And considering he only threw the football 19 times, 3 of those were INTs, that is definitely concerning. Okay. Definitely concerning. Like I said, especially in the Big Ten with such phenomenal defenses. You have Wisconsin in the Big Ten West. You have Iowa, probably top. Iowa's definitely considered a top 5 defense in the country, at least preseason. So Nebraska is going to have to figure that out. Okay, there's no getting around it. Ethan Kalikmanis, hopefully I didn't botch his last name there. Ethan was actually somebody that Iowa was in on. Iowa recruited him. I believe he is from South or North Dakota. I actually think he has a lot of upside. He has some decent athleticism. He has good size to him. He threw a few really good balls. The 4.5 average, I believe that would be per completion, is not the greatest. So that's definitely something to monitor. He threw the football 44 times, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. He had a 53.1 passer rating. Not terrible. He's definitely a young quarterback. So I'm curious to see what his development is like this season, what it ends up being. So we'll see there. On the ground, Jeff Sims, and we all knew he could do this. 91 yards, average 4.8 yards. But we've seen this before with Nebraska. Nebraska, for the past couple, especially under Frost, we've seen them have mobile quarterbacks. Okay. And in the Big Ten, really what you want above all else is just a quarterback that doesn't make a ton of mistakes. So even if you do have a quarterback that has the playmaking ability on the ground that Jeff Sims has, ultimately, if he's throwing 3 INTs, it's just a major problem. There's no getting around it. So again, something to monitor. Not bad having 91 yards on the ground. That is pretty decent for a quarterback, but cannot have the 3 INTs. Minnesota did definitely struggle to run the football. Nebraska, on the other hand, not as much. Gabe Irvin Jr. did okay. Had 7.9 yards rush per rush. Pretty good. Kind of interesting why they did not give him the rock a little bit more. And one more thing on Jeff Sims. In the Big Ten, okay, you have to, as a coach, and this is why even when Big Ten coaches have mobile quarterbacks, they really don't run them around a whole lot because the Big Ten is so dang physical. It's so easy for your quarterback to get banged up by the end of the season and just limping around everywhere. So again, if I was Nebraska, I would definitely be trying to get my running backs involved and establish that run game outside of Jeff Sims. To me, Jeff Sims should maybe be running the ball 10 times a game. That's it. Okay. Preferably it'd be less than 10. I'd say probably between 5 and 9 times a game. Is that 19 or 18? 19 carries. That's just too many times running the football. Receiving, I believe Nebraska was without Thomas Fedone, who, of course, was one of the best tight end prospects to come out in recent years. By most of the recruiting services, was the #1 ranked tight end. Of course, I'm well aware of him. He comes from the state of Iowa. Iowa recruited him hard. Ultimately, he chose his dad's alma mater in the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Doesn't look like he played. Alex Bullock had a decent game. Marcus Washington. Daniel Jackson really did have a solid game for Minnesota. Iowa also went after him on the recruiting trail. Here we have the defensive stats. Just really quickly, we'll go ahead and take a look at the team stats. Again, this is a good win for Minnesota. But I'm hesitant to go overboard with this win because we don't know how good Nebraska will be this year. Especially in Matt Rule's first year. Nebraska could have a 4-win season, and this win looks like nothing by the end of the season. We've seen that before. Prime example, when Iowa played Indiana ended up being an absolutely atrocious team down the line, whereas when they played Iowa, they were a ranked team 2 years ago. That happens, okay? So I just don't know truly where Nebraska is at. They do have some concerns, but again, it's the same thing as Northwestern. If you beat a Big Ten team, it's still a decent victory. There are the team stats, pretty even team stats. Nebraska had more yards than Minnesota, so not bad. And the defenses for both looked okay, but how much of it was the defense versus how much of it is the ineptitude of the both teams' offenses? All right, the next game here we'll take a look at Central Michigan versus Michigan State. Michigan State got the solid victory over Central Michigan. We'll go ahead and take a look at the team stats here. Noah Kim had a pretty good game, two touchdowns, 279 yards, 60.6 passer rating. Not bad. I think that they would take that any day of the week. They had a 100-yard rusher. Not bad at all. Team stats. Michigan State put up 406 yards of total offense. They will absolutely take that every day of the week. So not a bad victory for Michigan State. You guys all know, especially Iowa fans, I'm not as high on Mel Tucker as others are. I think I've long said that if he was a good coach, he would have had success at Colorado. Colorado is a place that you can win at. And the fact that he did not and jumped ship, I think shows a lot of his head coaching ability. I do think perhaps at Michigan State, if Deion Sanders is not at Colorado, most of the time Michigan State probably can recruit better than Colorado. But his one good season to date, he's had two, this I think is his third season, in my opinion, is more a product of his predecessors, his predecessors' roster makeup rather than his own. And he just kind of had a ton of talent put into his lap and, won some games. Michigan beat East Carolina. Good win there. Ohio State beat Indiana. Solid win there. Along the same exact lines as the other guys. Anytime you can beat a Big Ten team, that is solid. I actually think Indiana, considering they played the number 3 ranked team in the country, actually performed decently well. And I think the fact that they held Ohio State to 23 points is not bad. So we'll see how Indiana is able to propel forward. Penn State, I think, probably had the best win in the Big Ten in week 1. They beat West Virginia, usually a decent program, by double digits. They almost put up 40 points, and their defense totally limited West Virginia. I think that that's a really solid victory. Wisconsin had a pretty good victory over Buffalo. We'll see how good Buffalo is. Last year, they were a game above 500. I want to see their team stats though, real quick. Of course, this is the Iowa fan of me. I got to see their team stats. Tanner throwing 2 INTs is not the greatest. Okay. That is definitely something to monitor as well. But the ground game of Wisconsin, man, I wish Iowa could get back to running the football like this. Jeez, man, if we could just have one guy that ran like this. They have 2 guys running like this. 100+ yards. That's incredible. They had 314 yards of rushing yards. That's insane. Insane. Man, if Iowa could just crack 100. 23 first downs. Defense totally limited Buffalo. Total yards. Let's see here. Total. 503 yards. Wisconsin will take that any day of the week. Okay. So I think it's a pretty good victory for Wisconsin, especially in week 1 and first game of the Luke Fickell era. Iowa versus Utah State. I've said most of what I wanted to say on this in the post game. Iowa and week 1s are just really hard to fully gauge because Iowa, as a longstanding Iowa fan, I can unequivocally say that Iowa is absolutely, positively okay winning ugly. They don't care if they hang 40 points. They just want to win the football game. That is what they care about the most. And a lot of, it did seem like they pumped the brakes as soon as they got up after a 4th and 1 stop. Iowa's offense never really got back on track. And as one of the Iowa Hawkeye writers pointed out, once Iowa, namely Brian Ferentz, got out of their scripted plays, that was pretty much it. And that is definitely something to monitor. Does Brian Ferentz even have the capability of going with the flow of the game? Does it have to be scripted all the time for him? Can he make adjustments? Because that is the telltale sign of a solid offensive coordinator, is someone who, of course, has good scripted plays and a good game plan, but namely can adjust to the circumstances that present themselves in game. And I think that was an excellent point that was pointed out, and something definitely to monitor. And you know what? Now that I think about it, well, I've thought about it before talking about it now. I thought about it as soon as I read it. It really makes a ton of sense because ultimately, last year, Iowa, if they didn't score early on, they weren't scoring. And you saw a lot of these like 14 to 20 point games. And if the scripted plays did not make it happen, it was not improving. In fact, by the end of the game, in fact, a lot of times it got worse. It got even worse than what we saw in the first couple drives. So I really hope that that's not a legitimate thing. I hope. And the thing is, though, with Brian Ferentz, we've seen him have success before. We saw it against Ohio State. We've seen it, against USC in the Holiday Bowl. I mean, there's been times where throughout the entire game, it's just a solid offensive performance, but more often than not, that's not the case. So I really, really hope that that's not true. I'm hoping to the good Lord upstairs that this is more Iowa only scoring 24 points is more of them not wanting to show a ton of tape or put a lot of their plays on tape, and what the offensive schemes that they've worked on in the offseason. Although I guarantee that's a stretch because I've made a lot of these same excuses for Brian Ferentz in the past. I have. And for me, this is do or die. If Brian Ferentz cannot make it happen this year, I will publicly be clamoring for his job. And I have not done that yet. I think I've been one of the most fair individuals, sometimes overly fair, to Brian Ferentz. But with that being said, I think Cade McNamara had an okay game. It's crazy that he had 2 touchdowns to 0 interceptions, 6.4 average. He was slightly over 50% pass completion, and he still only has a 35.9 passer rating. I mean, I think that just shows, the game outside of the first couple drives, the game for Cade McNamara was kind of so-so. So, man. And then the other thing is Iowa is going to have to run the football. And one thing I realized this week that I haven't talked about, and it's true, I saw this article on Blackheart Gold Pants. Iowa is known as O-line U, but if you think about the actual production of the run game, and namely the offensive line as a unit over the last 3-4 years, you could easily argue that Iowa is overrated when it comes to offensive line play. At least the last couple of years, because the last 2 years outside of this season, the offensive line play has been bad. Now, Iowa, will produce a Tristan Wirfs and a Tyler Linderbaum. And, even this offensive line, I guarantee, has at least 1 or 2 NFL guys. I don't know if it's the scheme. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. But they have to improve. Now, the good news is the pass pro was much better. It was pretty solid. But the run pro has to get better. So Iowa wins the game. I said that I thought that Utah State was a pretty good week 1 opponent. I think Utah State will be I would say set between 7 and 9 win team this year. I think they have a good head coach. And, I'm as an Iowa, you always hope that the teams that are on your schedule do good outside of you. Even if you lose to them, you hope that they do well, because then it makes the loss or the win look better. Let's see here. Purdue, the upset of the week. Purdue loses to Fresno State. Not good. Purdue's defense was non-existent. They allowed almost 40 points from Group of 5 Fresno State. This is going to be a long year for Purdue. It's going to be a long year for Purdue. Now, who knows? Maybe Fresno State ends up being a 10-win team and a sleeper Group of 5 team, a Boise State type team. But wow. We'll look at the box score here just really quickly. See, that's what I'm saying. It's just weird. Like, look at this, guys. This is what I'm talking about with Cade McNamara's stats. So Hudson Card basically has like the exact same numbers. I mean, he does have more yards and he does have more yards per completion, but he's like double the total of Cade McNamara in QBR. I don't understand it. They're exactly the same, 17 of 30, exactly the same, 2 touchdowns, 0 INTs, double QBR. Very interesting. Not, we'll see, but I'll when I do the game preview, Iowa fans for Iowa, the Cyhawk game, I'll try and get the Pro Football Focus grades, and we'll see what happens there. You guys have been kind of lucky though and spoiled, because I've been paying for Pro Football Focus the last couple of years, and and I've been giving you guys free PFF grades. Most sites will make the article VIP in order to see the Pro Football Focus grades. Deion Burks did have a really good game receiving, 152 yards. Dang, Eric Brooks of Fresno State, 170 yards, almost 200 yards. Team stats. There you guys have it. See, but like I said, Purdue, if they're going to be giving up 400 to 500 yards of total offense, especially to group of 5 teams, they're going to have a long football season, a long one. So that definitely was the upset of the week. And then lastly, Illinois squeaked out a victory over Toledo. I think ultimately what matters for Illinois is they got the W, but only winning by 2 points, allowing 28 points from Toledo is eyebrow raising. Luke Almeyer had a negative QBR game. Not sure how that's possible. It says -1. See, that's what I'm saying. I don't think that all of these QBRs are totally accurate. 211 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT. Not a terrible game. 18 of 26. That's a decent game. Also had some yards on the ground. And those are the receiving totals. Team stats here. They gave up all 416 yards total offense. Again, that's a problem. If you're giving up 400 yards to a MAC school, some action, that is concerning. So Illinois will definitely have to get that sorted out, and we'll see. But I would say the highlight is that their quarterback didn't have a terrible game, and they had over 100 yards rushing. That's good. So those would definitely be the bright spots. All right, guys, to wrap this up here, I will do my Big Ten power rankings for you. We'll go ahead and get the standings up so you guys can just see what we're working with there. Not a ton of movement, to tell you the truth, from what I had preseason and my predicted order of finish. Actually, I'm not even sure I did a predicted order of finish. I'll have to do that. Man, this is the first year I haven't done that. I can't believe I didn't do that. But it always works itself out. I'm not big into doing the preseason predictions because ultimately, it is fun though to go back and check how accurate you were. And most of the time I have been pretty accurate, especially in the Big Ten West. All right, let's go ahead. And so maybe I will get a quick video up for that, so you guys can just have that. I am going to have Iowa stay atop of the Big Ten West. I know a lot of you guys will say I'm biased. So be it. I still believe Iowa has the most talent in the Big Ten West, top to bottom on their roster. They still did beat Utah State fairly comfortably. I do think Utah State will be an okay team this year. The defense looked great. Torrey Taylor looked great. Drew Stevens, their kicker, was fine. And there were some bright spots offensively. Was it exactly what I wanted to see? Of course not. But it was okay. Number 2, I am actually going to go with Minnesota due to them winning a Big Ten game. I'm going to go with Minnesota. Number 3, Wisconsin. You could go 2A, 2B, really. And we all know that the cream of the crop in the Big Ten West is Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. Illinois is on the outside looking in. Number 4, I will go with Illinois. Number 5, I will go with Purdue. Psych, I'm kidding. Number 5, I will go with Nebraska. Number 6, I will go with Northwestern. And 7, I have Purdue. Because ultimately, guys, them losing to Fresno State, to me, is far worse than Northwestern losing to Rutgers, at least as of now. And in the Big Ten East, I have Ohio State 1, Michigan 2. Even though I really, really did like Michigan's victory over East Carolina. Actually, you know what, guys? I take that back. I'm actually going to go Penn State number 1 because they had such a solid victory over West Virginia. I'm going to go Penn State 1, but like I said, really it's 1A, 1B, 1C. Ohio State 2, Michigan 3. As of now, all 3 of them had really good victories. And they're all neck and neck, okay? But my power rankings mostly have to do with the games that they have played up until this point. And after that, I would go with I think I'm going to go with Rutgers due to them winning a Big Ten game. I'll go Michigan State, then Maryland, and then Indiana. So, all right, guys, let me know what you guys think. What are your Big Ten power rankings? What did you think of this past week? Give me your thoughts. I always love to hear them, and I comment to as many of the comments as I can. I will be trying to do this every single week, Big Ten Whip Around show, and have us all taken care of there. If there's any particular topics that you guys want me to cover, of course, let me know, and I will get into it. If you guys want to donate to the channel, I'll put the Cash App and PayPal link in the description. And like I said, I hope you guys consider hitting that subscribe button, helping your boy get to 2,000 subs. At the very least, like, comment, share, and you know the drill. Without further ado, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow. Facts or feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Love you guys. See you guys next time. I know it's a Big Ten Whip Around show, but go Hawks. Bye-bye.